Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we are going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, and we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons news and the Breyer-Brady effect. All right, let's jump into this. So what the heck is the Breyer-Brady effect? Well, it's a Scott Garibay original, right? This term, Breyer-Brady effect, I am coining it right now today, right? And I'll explain what it is. And this is part of my attempt. So one, I thank you very much for listening to my channel and for being part of my channel. I know it's a difficult journey sometimes, but one of the things first of all, I will tell you right now, my content has deeply suffered since March 2020. So if you've seen a diminution of quality since March 2020, it's because I have been impacted in quality as a person. I struggle to do this content since March 2020. Since we live in this plague world, it's soul sucking. And so one, I really appreciate. So one of the things I'm thinking is what do I do with my channel? What do I want to stand for? What do I want to talk about the most? Well, the first and foremost answer is Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. But I will tell you right now, beyond that, it could be challenging, and there's a lot of different directions you can go on coverage on Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. So one of the things that I want to do is I want my content to be unique, and I want to talk about things that you're not going to get anywhere else. So in order for me to do that, I will coin my own terms when I see things happen in the world. So let's talk about Breyer-Brady. All right, so the Breyer-Brady effect is when legitimate news sources present news in a way that contains multiple flags of misinformation, right? This happened twice within the last month. This happened twice in January 2022, right? I'll give you two examples of it. Justice Breyer and Tom Brady, okay? Two retirements announced before the person who was retiring announced it, okay? Both of them had exactly the same structure. Absolutely no legitimate source quoted, right? So they had these two stories had the same structure, okay? First, they came out a day or two before the actual person who was retired, okay? And both, they had massive magnitude, right? So both stories had massive magnitude. Justice Breyer, lives depend on his decision. People will die or live, literally, because of who gets put into his position, right? Literally life or death, right? For Tom Brady, people's jobs are on the line, right? When he says I'm retiring, a whole bunch of people's job status goes up, big question mark. Do we need you? And also, oh, hey, Tom has a new clothing line. A whole bunch of people in fashion have a new job, right? Or whatever he chooses to do next, he is creating new jobs, and he is expelling jobs that existed, right? A ton of, literally 1,000 plus, maybe 10,000 people's jobs change day one when Tom Brady announces he retired, right? Both of these stories were covered by literally, at minimum, 100 to maybe 1,000 major news sources on the planet, covered both of these stories a day or two before either person who was being talked about confirmed anything, and quoted absolutely zero credible sources, right? Now, if you are reporting something and the person you're reporting it about has said nothing, right, to indicate that it's true, and you don't quote a single credible source, that has every tag of misinformation, right? But no one said, oh, hey, look at these misinformations about Stephen Breyer, look at these misinformations about Tom Brady. And the reason why was, right, it had every tag of misinformation, right? Lack of credible source, the person who's being discussed having said nothing that matches what's been in the actual story, right? Two major tags, right? And really the story sitting firmly on a foundation of vapor, right? Both stories look like misinformation 100%, right? But 100%, they were not misinformation. They were totally 100% true, okay? With no credible sources, no confirmation from the people being discussed, but they turned out to be 100% news, right? And since they were not based on any credible source, right? You know what this really is like? It's like prophecy, right? Like, we see this all the time in the church, right? Like, oh, you said this was going to happen. There weren't any, like, a lot of facts or anything that would indicate it would happen, but oh, there it happened, right? It's just like they were prophesying this stuff, right? Like, and so this is the Breyer-Brady effect. And so what we need to do is we need to realize news comes very frequently. News comes out early, right, with no credible sources, right, and then very, very swift that has multiple tags that indicate it is misinformation, but then turn out to be 100% accurate, viable news, right? And let me trust and believe, right? If major news events like the retirement of a Supreme Court justice and the retirement of arguably the most successful athlete on the planet, right, are coming out with multiple tags of misinformation and then being confirmed almost within a day to 2 days later of being absolutely 100% viable news, right? The Breyer-Brady effect, the Breyer-Brady effect will be on full point for Dungeons & Dragons news. We will often hear correct 100% viable news way before it is properly, credibly sourced, right? And we've already seen it in January 2022, Nerd Immersion. Total Breyer-Brady effect, right? He's like, hey, everybody, Mordenkainen presents Monsters of the Multiverse. I'm not going to tell you who gave it to me. I'm not going to tell you my source. Look at these incredibly shady, really badly illuminated mobile pics that were sent to me, right? You looked at his, like, you were like, this has every tag of misinformation. The mobile pics look super shady. And he even said, I have no right to have this information. Like, I have no actual right to have the information that I'm going to share with you now. And not only did people get all over that news, Bob the World Builder took the images he put up, these super shady, jank, misinformation looking pieces of evidence, right? Put them up and said, hey, look, like, look at this, right? And actually scraped out every single monster's name and I think even determined that like a new monster was in there, like, and treated this as complete viable news, even though it had every single tag of misinformation, right? Like, so the reality is the Breyer-Brady effect. Let me summarize. The Breyer-Brady effect is when 100 plus completely legitimate news sources present to you something that has every single tag of misinformation, right? It has multiple tags of misinformation, presents it to you as news with no credible source, right? And with no confirmation about the people who are actually talked about in the content. And then it is confirmed within a week that it was completely 100% viable news. The Breyer-Brady effect, I can't even say, I don't even want to say it's good or bad, because the reality is, the biggest thing is it's proof we live in a shockingly different world, right? And then just a dramatically shocking, like, world that moves at the speed of lightning, and nothing we've ever seen previously really compares to the world we live in now, right? So that's the Breyer-Brady effect, a term coined for you right here on Scott Garibay's Dungeons & Dragons, on Scott Garibay's channel, right, which discusses Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And I'll tell you right now, in 2022, we are going to have major, major, major occurrences of the Breyer-Brady effect in Dungeons & Dragons news, because if it cannot be escaped on something as important as the number one athlete in the world's retirement and a Supreme Court justice's retirement, there's no possibility they can control this from the perspective of actual Dungeons and Dragons news. Well, that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.